Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you I hadn't had a chance to catch up with this year, can I wish you all a happy new year? I hope it's not too late to do that. I just wanted to pass some remarks about the record high levels of inflation that we've announced today, or the government's announced today. Inflation hitting almost 6%, double what is wage growth at 2.4%, just means that average Kiwis aren't getting ahead, and that's a really big challenge and a really big problem. I don't think inflation's been this high since Barry was a young man, actually. I know you're still a young man at heart, but that's a really big challenge, and I am really, really worried about how that's impacting on New Zealanders. The reality tonight is that there'll be parents that will be sitting there at home, have gone through Christmas with all the extra expenses, are sitting around that kitchen room table thinking about how they're paying for the school stationery, the school uniforms, and all the other costs of fuel and food that they've got going forward. The reality is one of the big drivers of it, the biggest driver, is a big 68% increase in government spending. That's leading to inflation, and that's actually driving and overheating the economy as a consequence. We know we need to spend money, but we need to make sure the money is not wasteful. And so for us, we really want to see and encourage the Minister to actually rein in spending now before we actually have to make some tougher decisions that become much uglier as we go forward. Rising inflation leads to rising interest rates, which makes it even tougher for people to be able to get ahead, and the reality is people aren't being able to get ahead with inflation like this. So with that, happy to take any questions that you may have.
Are you concerned that the OCR now may move further ahead into people that are over-leveraged in housing may in fact be forced into mortgage sales?
That's the absolute reality, is that when you've got a 68% increase in government spending, it's leading to the next consequence, which is we're going to have rising interest rates without doubt. And the Reserve Bank's going to have to act very quickly to make sure that they bring inflation under control again. They're well outside the boundary that they've been set now, and there'll have to be consistent increase in interest rates, and that's not good enough. But we have an opportunity when there's $6 billion of new money coming into the budget this year to actually think carefully about where that money goes. And there's a lot of wasteful spending, and we need to pull that back, rein it in, and make sure it's going to the most productive places it can go.
That $6 billion is new OPEX, which is the government has already said that that's going into things like this big climate change package. So are you calling on the government to spend less on...
You have to get really clear right now about the nice-to-do stuff and the must-do stuff. And like you do in your own household budgets, if you don't reshape now, you'll end up making a whole bunch of really tough decisions down the road that will be really about austerity and about some very serious cuts. We don't want to see that. We want money invested, we want money being spent, but it's got to be spent on the right things. And what I'd say to you is, when you've got a COVID fund that's only half of it's been spent on COVID, the rest has been spent on a bunch of other stuff, there's a number of examples where I look at and say, you've got to get really clear and rein the spending in now while you can, and make sure it's high quality spending.
So what are those examples?
Well, I put it to you, the COVID fund's been a classic case where we've actually had a $50 billion plus fund, less than half of it's been spent on COVID. Other parts of it have been spent on, cameras on fishing boats. We've had, 3 water consultants fees. We've had a whole bunch of things come in and out of that budget that don't need to be there. So I think, the message very clearly is you've got a chance to do it right now. So actually that's what you should be focused on.
What are the 3 biggest things that you've cut?
Well, look, I think, for me, it's fundamentally around making sure, if we've got situations where government procurement is actually driving up prices across the piece. If you think about the extra resource that's gone into Kāinga Ora, it's not delivering better outcomes, but it's actually competing with the private market and driving up inflation. Essentially, the problem is we have a constrained economy. We've got our borders shut, we've got massive labour shortages, and we've got a big spend of government spending that's actually competing with private sector resources, and that's driving into inflation. So it's just about taking a step back, thinking very dispassionately about actually, is that a good investment or not? I'd put it to you, having an idea that you were going to build an $800 million walking and cycling path, then spending $51 million over 4 months just looking at that project or thinking about it, that's the sort of dumb stuff that needs to be stopped. And so that's the logical thing that you would do as a small business owner. That's what you do around the kitchen table with your own personal finances. They're saying, hey, listen, we're getting things a bit loose here, we need to tighten it up, because if we don't do it now, we'll end up facing a whole bunch of more difficult decisions down the road, and that's what we don't want to see.
On ICU capacity, we've seen some modelling that shows we can see up to 80,000 cases a day. That's at the high end, and we don't know how big the outbreak will be. Are you concerned about ICU capacity?
Yeah, I am concerned. If you remember, before Christmas, I asked the Prime Minister and the Parliament about ICU bed capacity, because essentially over the last year we've had no growth or new additional ICU beds created. Let's hope we don't need them, but the reality is we should be prepared. And it's again about making sure that we're not just talking about things, that we're actually not just using spin. We actually are making sure that it's actually there. And so for me, I am concerned about things like ICU beds. As we've been talking this week, rapid antigen testing is another one. You should be able to get one if you need one, if you're a critical worker that needs to get to work and test to work. But you should also get one if you want to choose one. If you want to go visit your grandparents and you just want to be able to pop in, grab a rapid antigen test and then pop by and see them, why can't you do that as well? And so what's happening again is the Prime Minister's talking about this stuff as if it's happening for real, but it's actually out there in the real world. It's not happening. It's not getting done. And so you can talk about orders that might arrive from March to May, but the reality is they're not here today. And as a consequence, the government's now commandeering supplies out of corporate customers. Many of those people have been using rapid antigen tests for a long period of time and over the year to keep their employees safe, and now those stocks are being commandeered. We've only just approved, after a whole year of denying rapid antigen testing, now sort of saying, oh yes, we're looking into it, it'll be in phase 2 or 3 or whatever it is. The bottom line is that we've only approved 7 actual suppliers. We've got another 2 maybe online, but there's over 50 that have already been approved in Australia. So, and these companies, these rapid antigen tested producers, have actually been coming to the government over the last year to say, hey, listen, we'd love to help. We've got these products. Could they be used? So, again, I'm not trying to be critical for the sake of being critical, but what I'm just trying to say, there's a very big difference between talking about stuff and executing stuff and getting it done. And whether you see it around spending, whether you see it around rapid antigen testing, those are the things that I think we need to start to focus on.
And on boosters, do you think the technical advisory group's working fast enough to drop the wait from 4 to 3 months?
Well, again, I think, as someone who's used to getting things done, I don't understand why you pick up the phone. So you've got 24 hours to give me a straight answer on that, because there must be a bunch of desk research that's sitting around the world. There's a number of other medical authorities. We live in a world of 195 countries, 7.8 billion other people, and there's good practice and learning that's happened in lots of other places. So, we should be able to find an answer very quickly for that as to what's the right number, and we should be very guided by the public health advice as a consequence.
Do you think it's a supply and resource issue that is preventing them now from going to 4 to 3 months?
I don't know, to be honest, Joe. I don't understand and I don't see the advice that they would see about what's going on there. But it seems very straightforward. Either academically and in an expert sense, you either know that 4 months is better, 4 months is better than 3 or 3 is better than 4. That's the key answer you'd get, and then you'd worry about where the supply comes very quickly. So I don't know what's holding it up, but I would have thought I would have given someone a day to give me that answer.
How frustrating for you was it over the summer that the 2 stories that you ended up having schools which I'm responding to were because of ill judgment by one of your GPs?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's been pretty silly and unwise, those actions, and what I'd say to you is that, I want all my MPs focused on their portfolios and on the things that matter most to New Zealanders. I've made that pretty crystal clear in my expectations with them, and that's what I expect going forward.
So have you spoken to Hereti today?
I haven't spoken to Hereti today, but Nicola Willis has.
How many more chances does she get? Because that's 2.
I've been pretty crystal clear about expectations. What I'd say to you, though, is that people actually aren't that interested in the story. They're much more interested in inflation, and they're much more interested in rapid antigen tests.
What did Nicola Willis
That's
respond?
difficult for you as a new leader, though, to famously turn the page when you are constantly bogged down by this sort of stuff. I mean, at what point do you say to Hereti, either sort it out or there's the door?
Those conversations will stay private, but I can just say to you it's pretty silly and unwise, and I really want all the MPs focused on their portfolios and what matters most to New
Can you
Zealanders.
give us a sense of what the conversation between Hereti and Nicola Willis was?
No, that's a private conversation between Nicola and Hereti.
But is it basically she's on thin ice, one more gap and she's gone?
The expectations are crystal clear to all of our caucus about the standards we expect, and as I said, I can tell you people are much more fixated and interested in New Zealand at the moment around inflation and why they're going backwards, with the cost of living going twice as fast as their wages, and certainly with respect to rapid antigen tests and other things as well.
Is it time that she resigns?
Okay, any other questions?
Yes,
Sorry, Barry.
on the TVNZ opinion poll coming out tonight, are you confident?
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I'm sure you've already seen.
But what I'd say to you is that, as you saw me say last year, we're off to a positive and encouraging start. But most importantly, I'd say to you is that we've got a lot of work to do, and our job is to make sure that team is firing. People are focused on what they need to do, and opposing the government, as hopefully you've seen in a constructive way around rapid antigen tests. About what they need to be doing, but equally also proposing ideas through the course of the year, and that's what I'm expecting from our MPs as we go forward.
You've got the caucus retreat coming up in a couple of days. What is the work that you've been doing over the summer, and what is the message that is going to go to the caucus on Monday?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a 2 days caucus, and really it's a chance for us to say how we're going to work together. It's the what and why we're doing, of our agenda, but also how we're going to be doing it. And again, it's a chance to lay out expectations very clearly about what I expect delivery from each and every MP, what are the key deliverables I'm expecting from them by their portfolios, how I expect them to be out there in the real world engaging with stakeholders and broader industry and voters and people, and actually finding out what their needs are. So we'll talk a lot about what does it take for us to get from where we sit today to where we need to be in 2023. We'll talk a little bit about the plan quarter by quarter as to how we might do that. I want to talk a little bit about some of those big themes and big issues that we want to start to think about, like mental health and other things as well.
Because there's been quite a bit of criticism from the public and also actually from national MPs about the government not doing any work over summer. What have you and Nicola been doing? Where are you at with your State of the Nation speech, policies? What have you been doing?
Yeah, so we've been working on all those things, and so a lot of it for us has just been planning out and thinking very clearly about, I want to make sure each MP is crystal clear about what they need to do in their job, and laying up the criteria by which we'll be judging their performance and making that crystal clear as an internal process. There's a lot of conversation around what are the key themes for the year and what's our position and our thinking, and ultimately how do we come forward with proposals about those ideas. So
throwing the policy book out, are you rewriting National's position on a large chunk of things?
No, we're coming at it from a point of view, and unfortunately we've delayed the State of the Nation speech by virtue of the COVID constraints, but we'll look to do that very shortly as well. But a lot of the themes are, we've got good policy, but I want it sharpened up. I want it really clear that what are the 3 to 5 things you're going to do in each individual portfolio that we think would make the biggest difference for New Zealanders. Sometimes we get lost in too much intellectualism and too much intellectualisation in a big policy document in a big book. 75, 80 pages isn't particularly helpful. I just want to know what are the 4 or 5 things you're going to do in your portfolio that we think would make the biggest difference to move the agenda forward for the country.
Are there any other levers the government could be pulling, or other steps that could be taken apart from addressing what you call wasteful spending, do you think, when it comes to addressing it?
Well, what I'd say to you is, look, the Prime Minister and Grant Robertson are going to tell you that this is all an international problem. It's happening everywhere around the world. Well, Australia's just delivered in the same period of time in a 3.5% inflation rate versus us at 5.9, almost 6%.
But the OECD average is 5.8.
Yeah, and within the domestic, consumption, domestic inflation number, it's running about 5.3%. A big focus on that, you'll see, will be oil, and construction, and it's actually also about rates and some other things, and rents are the big drivers of that. But even within, here's an example, probably up to at any point in time, a third of the fuel price can be up to tax. And we've got a regional fuel tax in Auckland that's raised $500 million and actually has only spent just less than half of that in actual projects, on transport projects within Auckland. So if you want to do something tomorrow, here's an idea. Why don't you actually poll act the regional fuel tax, as a result? Because that would make it easier on Aucklanders doing it tough. It means they've got more money in their pocket rather than paying it into a tax where it's just sitting there in a bank account doing nothing as those projects aren't happening. So, there's a simple example. If you want to get the price of fuel down, seriously look at the tax piece component of it. And when you've got a regional fuel tax in Auckland that's not being spent, there's a good example. Knock it on the head.
The wage subsidy was a big expense in the last few years. Would you have done anything differently?
No, that's a good spend, and I'm not undermining that we shouldn't not spend money, but I guess what I'm just trying to say is that as good, prudent managers of the economy and making sure that we're doing the right thing, as you would in your personal finances, running a small business, and as you should running the country, that signal of inflation being the highest it's been since 1988, being more than double wage growth, is a good wake-up call to say, hey, listen, we need to rein in public spending, government spending. And we need to think really carefully about where those funds are directed, where they can have the most impact. Do the must-do stuff, not the nice-to-do stuff for now, and start to get it sharpened up and focused. We're not saying, have massive budget cuts. We're just saying, let's be really intelligent about actually how we spend that money and be a bit more intentional and a bit more purposeful about what it's supposed to be doing for us. Okay, with that, thank you very much, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you the rest of the week. See ya.